Dear colleagues, on behalf of Georg Beyer, who is the first author of our recently published study in gut, and myself, I would like to welcome you to our video abstract. The study we would like to introduce to you today is the definition of age-dependent reference values for the diameter of the common bile duct and the pancreatic duct on MRCP. This has been a population-based cross-sectional cohort study, and as you can already see, it's a very simple topic, but in our understanding, it has a great clinical impact. So what is known on the subject? We know that the increase in diameter of the CBD or pancreatic duct may indicate disease. There are several factors influencing the width or diameter of bile duct and pancreatic duct, and those are, just to give an example, age, the use of secretin, or the removal of gallbladder. Current reference limits are based on insufficient data, and this is what you can see in the table on the right side. Also, there is a change in modalities over years from ultrasound to MRCP, and there are no prospective studies in healthy individuals to set reference levels. Therefore, we started this study, and Georg will now introduce you to the design of our recently published reference values.
Thank you, Julia. Now, the first obstacle was obviously finding a large enough and characterized well enough cohort that was comprised of subjects that had not been undergoing investigations because of disease, but were presumably healthy. Luckily for us, there is the so-called Study of Health in Pomerania, or short SHIP, which is being conducted in the very northeast of Germany, which is based on a subject recruited from the general population on caucus-based data. It was already started in 1997, and subjects that have been included have been followed up every 5 years. In 2008, whole body MRI was first introduced, and at the same time in 2008, a second cohort called SHIP Trend, as you can see in the diagram, was recruited as well. Both cohorts, SHIP Start 2 and SHIP Trend, are the baseline cohorts for the study that we are presenting today. And a total of 6,753 subjects were eligible for screening for participation. Of those 6,753 subjects, roughly half were undergoing whole body MRI. And of those, about 1/3 had also an MRCP. An MRCP is a magnetic resonance cholangiopancreatography, so a special imaging modality for visualization of the pancreatic and bile ducts. Of those subjects that had MRCP and full clinical data available, we identified 115 which had various pathologies of the pancreaticobiliary system and were therefore excluded, leaving us with a little over 1,000 presumably healthy individuals with good imaging. And those were then further investigated. Of those 1,018 healthy subjects, 80 had their gallbladder removed previously. They were still included, but analyzed separately for reasons which we will show you later. And again, a subgroup of 837 of those 1,018 had an additional secretin-stimulated MRCP. We used maximum intensity projection imaging, as you can see on the right-hand side, to measure the largest diameter of the common bile duct, as well as the pancreatic duct. What are the new and important findings among many in the study? The first is that we did confirm that age has an influence on the diameter of the common bile duct and the pancreatic duct, as both ducts are increasing over time. The second important finding is that cholecystectomy leads to an increase of the common bile duct, but not to an increase of the pancreatic duct. And vice versa, the use of secretin stimulation leads to an increase of the pancreatic duct diameter, but not of the common bile duct diameter. Curiously and importantly, we did find that if to our cohort, the conventional upper limits of normal of 7 millimeters for the common bile duct and 3 millimeters for the pancreatic duct would have been applied, about 18 to almost 70% of the common bile duct measurements would have been above that limit. And similarly, but not quite as dramatically, for the pancreatic duct, it would have been between 11 and 33% of subjects which would have exceeded the upper limits of normal and therefore would have had an indication for further workup. We confirmed in a number of multivariate analyses that especially age is the predominant factor for increase of the duct size, and the importance of it has been shown to be much more significant than, for example, BMI or gender in a number of different models. And this prompted us to really go ahead and look for ways to redefine the upper limits of normal. As the data that I have shown you before is based on medians, we needed to use a different statistical method, because obviously the upper limit of normal should not be based on a median, but really on excluding the upper 5% of subjects. Therefore, we conducted what is called a quantile regression analysis on the 95th percentile for both of our measurements of the common bile duct and the pancreatic duct, indicated here as the red lines. So Julia will now discuss with you how this might influence your daily practice and what are the take-home messages.
So to cut a long story very short, what you have to keep in mind from these video abstract is, in a healthy subject below the age of 65, a CBD can measure 8 millimeters. Above the age of 65, it can measure 11 millimeters. If your patient has undergone cholecystectomy, the CBD can be as wide as up to 14 millimeters. What you only have to exclude is that there's impaired liver function or clinical symptoms, because that would warrant further workup. But in the absence of these, you can just regard your patient as healthy, even if you detect a widened CBD. For the pancreatic duct, again, in the absence of any symptoms of pancreatic disease, a pancreatic duct can be as wide as 4 millimeters on average. And again, then you should regard your patient as healthy, and there's no need for further workup. If you want to understand more about how we actually got these stages, please be referred to our open access paper, which is freely available on the webpage of GUT or via PubMed or Google. And thanks for listening to us today.